Lavie, it's good to meet you. Thanks for coming on the show today.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me, Eric.
Yeah, awesome. Did I get that right, by the way? Is it Lavie?
It is Lavie. Yep. A lot
Okay,
of
cool.
people butcher it, but you got it right.
Right on. Yeah, well, it's this show is called Chaos to Clarity, and what I try to do with my guests is to talk about kind of their journey through building and growing startups, the sort of growing pains and the challenges that they struggle with along the way, and then what are kind of the tools or systems or keys that you've used to unlock that have provided more clarity and more sustainable growth.
Sure. Yeah.
Sound good?
I got a number of those.
Awesome. But forget about the audience, right? This is just you and me here.
Yeah.
And I would definitely like to get to know you a little bit more. I checked into your background. I'm also, I kind of claim being a New Yorker, even though I know I don't have the accent, but my whole family's from there. And I spent summers growing up in the city. My mom is still out there in Long Island. So it's definitely.
Nice. I actually grew up in Long Island.
You grew up on the island as well?
Yeah, I grew up in Island. Yep.
Awesome. Yeah, my mom's in Garden City, so I was there just a few months ago.
Nice.
Yeah.
It's a good place.
Dad grew up in the Bronx. Grandma was in Midtown. Sister was in Brooklyn. So I spent like the good old day, like the 80s and 90s in New York City were something else.
Yeah. Yeah. Especially the early 90s.
Yeah. Yeah. Still to this day, like you can drop me in any city in the world that has a subway and I'm just like, I'll figure it out,
Yeah. It's good. You definitely gain a lot by growing up in New York. Yeah, if you make it in New York, you can make it anywhere. So,
absolutely, yeah. There's something about there's the resiliency and the sort of self-sufficiency that you got to learn. But I don't know, maybe the independence as well, right? Like my grandma would just be like, "Yeah, go down to the store, go meet your aunt over on the other side of town. Just you take whatever train,
Exactly. Figure it out as you got.
Figure it out.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, so I want to hear about your background, but I want to ask it a little bit differently. So
Sure.
a lot of times when I talk to people about their background, they kind of like recite their resume, and I don't quite get what I'm looking for. And what I want to hear is sort of like your origin story a bit. So, can you tell me something about your upbringing or your childhood, even that sort of defined who you are, shaped who you are, that helped you become the person you are today?
Sure. Absolutely. Growing up, starting out in Queens, Long Island, and four brothers. My dad got remarried, had four girls, a lot younger than I am, and moved out of my house early on when I was 13. Talk about trying to figure out things on your own. At the age of 13, moving out to Florida, actually. And then from there, I'm kind of jumping from place to place throughout my teenage years. And then
Where in Florida were you?
At Miami Beach.
Oh, nice. I grew up in Boca Raton, so that was my
Nice.
other home. Between South Florida and New York as well.
Yeah.
Common thing, I guess, for New Yorkers, but
Yeah. I mean, going through that, I guess everyone, internalizes things differently in terms of like the things that happened to them. But going through the different experiences that I had, that I went through early on, it kind of built something inside of me of like just like wanting to overcome battles, wanting to overcome challenges, and I don't, I'm still trying to learn myself every day, and in terms of like what really drives me, but essentially it's the challenge I think that really drives me. It's knowing that it's going to be hard and it's going to be tough. It's at times it's you feel like you get beaten down and you want to give up, but the idea is to never give up and keep up pushing forward, and ultimately you'll succeed. And there's so many people out there. There's so much competition in everything you do and around you. You want to differentiate yourself. You want to succeed in life, and you're like, okay, how am I going to succeed when all these other people are failed? And the one constant that in my mind, and it comes a lot from my upbringing, is just like, okay, just don't give up. No, and now it's challenging because there's two sides to that, right? It's like, what do we don't give up? If you add something for so long, and you're not seeing the fruit of that labor, you're not seeing the success, then maybe you should give up. Maybe you should move on to something else.
what were some of those challenges that you're talking about? Where where were you
as a
presented with something where you felt like you were going to fail or you had to keep pushing?
yeah, I could jump into that if we like. So, I mean, even early on, like I started Empower Energy, it's a renewable power and gas company. Well, that's not even early. I mean, there's challenges I had way before that. I built out um, yeah, laundry room business for over 6.5 years, and many challenges around that, and worked with my dad in property management. Didn't really have too many challenges around that. It was more like an experience,
Hmm.
gaining experience from the age of like 20 years old. But really, it's like let's talk about the laundry room business. So let's talk, it's trying to figure out from ground up like how to actually like, I don't know, I didn't have any experience at all around it. So like, how do I did it in apartment buildings. So my dad owned apartment buildings, worked for him. I'm like, okay, great. I could take some spaces in the basement. I could build out the laundry rooms. So figuring out how to go about doing all of that, and building out the concrete bases to buying out the machines and lifting these 300-pound machines in these like tiny little basements and putting them in, and then realizing that you know walking away thinking that everything's just gonna all the money's gonna kind of roll in. Then
Mm.
one day there's just like a fire, and then then the entire whole room like burns up, and I'm just like, okay, what do I do now at this point? That happens multiple times as well, and because or let's say somebody gets a quarter stuck in one of the machines, and instead of calling the number on the wall, they're taking it back to the machine over and over again. So for a quarter, you end up losing thousands of dollars. So, I mean, that was early on. I chalked that up to a lot. So just, I kind of enjoyed the experience of it, of just like going through
Mm.
that and understanding like, how to get something done. You have this idea of, oh, I want to put a room together with machines that way tenants come in and they put coins in and I can make money off of it. And understanding like what goes into the inputs of it, and then, the challenges that come along with that as well. But that was a smaller venture, like from everything that I've been doing for the past 13 years. But moving on from that to like retail power and gas, like I'm from like a real estate background. And I knew nothing about power and gas.
Mm.
Um, so just trying to figure out like, yeah, how do you actually like create a energy company? Like what do you do? Like I guess you have to like do some paperwork, right? You have to like file
Hmm.
some stuff and find some a lawyer to like do those things for you, and then of course once you're able to have the ability to actually supply with customer power, and I have to get customers and figure out the nuances in terms of optimizing the trading side of things. So it's like tons of challenges that come along with that. And then, early on, I'll tell you something very specific around the energy businesses, because, I come from a real estate background, got a lot of connections, within the landlord space. So, going after, that was like my go-to because those are the people So, meeting
Hmm.
with those folks, signing up a bunch of contracts with them, uh, thinking that, oh, this is great. I'm going to be making tons of money. They're there's big landlords that have lots of buildings and use lots of energy. It's going to be really really great. But I didn't realize that I knew nothing about energy at the time, and I don't really know how to price things, and I don't know how to purchase in the right
Mm.
way. And then kind of falling flat in my face early on, and realizing that, well, wait a second, before I go ahead and try to take on like these massive landlords, I probably want to optimize, the purchasing side, and, understand exactly how the cost components work and how to
Mm.
sell properly and so on and so forth.
So there's an interesting case study here, with this experience with the laundry business, right? Some people might think, oh, well, maybe that's not relevant to what you're doing today, or it's not relevant to tech. But I found that founders or entrepreneurs who have experience with small businesses, right, like non-tech focused small businesses, they have more context and experience about the nuts and bolts of running a business. A lot of folks, come out of college, they want to build some SaaS platform or some big piece of tech, and it's a very complicated product for one thing. And the other thing is there's all these kind of boring aspects of running a business that they're completely unaware of, the financial side of things, for example. And I found that it's almost like how like a PhD is incredibly smart in one small area, but then might be kind of clueless in other areas of life. Both my parents were PhDs, and so
Mm.
I had this experience. They lack that kind of street smarts, I guess, if you will.
Sure.
And but the founders that I know that have that have that experience in some sort of, maybe not necessarily brick and mortar business, but a just a more simple business that has the, that you can see the thing working, right? It's like opening up a classic car and like knowing you can follow the direction of everything. You can see wherever you can take it apart. You can kind of understand how it works. Provides, I think, just a lot more context and clarity later on when they try to build these much more complicated SaaS platforms.
I
So is
mean,
that your experience, or the things that you've drawn from that early kind of business management side that are helpful for you today?
well, I think what you're touching upon is extremely important. Like, I think when people get into running a tech company, they don't
Mm-hmm.
think it's a business. They don't think it's a company
Mm-hmm.
that they're running. They think
Right.
it's tech. Like
Right.
tech is not a business. They think it
Right.
is like, oh, I'm running a business, but they're not treating it in that way. They're
Mm.
treating it in a way where perhaps they want to grow, put their customer base as quickly as possible, or and then get to exit, year 3, year 5, whatever it might be, or raise a bunch of money. That might, that's, or they, the allure of it. It's just exciting. This like, heck, I want to solve lots of problems and pain points in the world, but
Mm-hmm.
at the end of the day, like revenue needs to exceed cost. Like
Right.
you need to
Right.
be able to make money in the business,
Yeah.
and in a way that's repeatable, and you could grow it, and it's healthy, and
Yeah.
you're not getting ahead of yourselves, right? You're not trying to like do too much at one time. And then it's hard to do that because, again, like the VCs that are pumping money into these tech companies want you to
Mm-hmm.
kind of get ahead of yourself, and they also have some expectations that you have to meet. So even if
Mm-hmm.
you have certain folks that are, I believe, looking to, that are thinking about it in the right way, you have these like conflicting external factors that come into play, like infusion of external cash. So, but yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, you're 100% right. I think, for myself, my dad's in real estate for 50 years, and I worked with him for 7 years before I even started the laundry business. And he's a very nuts and bolts guy. And,
Mm-hmm.
and that's kind of where I learned most of, I guess my mindset and the way I look at business today is, it's all, even if it's tech, it's still business. And,
Yeah.
you still have to think about it in that way.
Yeah, I have a leadership framework that I coach and work through my clients. I call it the full stack leadership framework. And at the bottom, the foundational layer is operations. And then you have strategy, vision, storytelling, and then coaching, which I believe is the highest form, or sort of the most mature form of leadership. But at the ground level is operations, is what are the nuts and bolts? Do you actually understand your business and how your business works? And you don't have to be an operator or a COO per se, but you can't get to those higher levels of leadership if you don't fundamentally understand business or how your business works. And so, yeah, I do find that there are a lot of founders out there that I work with who maybe are really great at strategy or really great at vision and storytelling, but if they just don't really understand the mechanics of their business, they're out of touch and
Yeah.
potentially could fail.
There's a flip side of that as well,
Mm.
which is, coming, let's say, from the apartment building space, you don't really have to like, have an ICP, right? You don't have to have like
Mm-mm.
ideal customer profile. Like
Right.
a tenant, a prospective tenant knocks on your door, and then they have to fill out a form, and they have to pass credit, and then, they move into the apartment. Like there isn't much marketing going on around that space, or the long term business. Right? Like,
Yeah.
it's the
Yeah.
tenants in the building are gonna use the machines, and that's the extent of it. Like, you might want to put some papers under the door. Uh, but in the tech world, because, you're open to the entire world, and you can sell to the entire world.
Hmm.
If it's great, fantastic that you have that ability. I mean, that ability based on, your marketing, your product, and obviously it depends on your product. You can't sell to the entire world, uh, but then at the same time, it brings a lot of challenges as well, tremendous challenges, which if you're coming from blank slate, then you can learn it. You could be more open to the idea of that. But when you're coming from a business, or you're coming from past successes where you didn't need to
Mm.
think about any of that stuff, it could potentially be a blocker.
Yeah, yeah. So there's this concept that I'm always evangelizing, that software as a service is a service first and it's software second, right? So the fundamental thing that you're doing is you're providing a service, ideally at a profit. And software is simply a way to automate and scale that service. And again, the problem that a lot of founders deal with is they build the software first before they really understand the service that they're building. And so then they're scaling something that is inefficient. So I've actually coached several clients to actually begin a services business, either instead of or at least in addition to the software that they're trying to build, so that they really understand who their customers are, what their problems are, what their pain points are, and then what does the service actually look like that the software is supposed to come in and automate and scale. And again, it's not always warmly received, but those who get there are awakened by it, right? It allows you to get in front of your customers. It allows you to become kind of an insider and really develop that empathy and that context. Then it becomes so much easier to build software on top of it.
Right. And yeah, you're right on. And I kind of send the pushback as well. Like, well, I'm not getting into this to,
Yeah.
be just a service provider, right? Where this is not scalable at all. And you think I want to actually be doing this type of work that's not manual, it's not automated. I don't want to be doing that type of work. I don't even want to delegate that type of work. But in reality is it's education, right? It's learning. It's learning about exactly what the 100% right, what that service is. And then learn about what aspects of it you want to automate and you want to scale.
And it's getting your hands dirty, right? It's getting in there and figuring it out and really understanding what they're going through and like why it's so painful. And then of course, an innovator is always going to come up with a million ways to make it more efficient and scalable through technology. But so I'm always kind of talking people off that ledge. It's like, hey, if you're not an insider, if you haven't really done this thing that you're trying to build a product for, slow down, right? Take a minute, and not even take a minute, really throw yourself into the fray of the crap that your customers are having to deal with on a day-to-day basis. And then let that kind of innovation cycle, run wild.
Yeah. I've had people don't do enough of that work up front. And that's why I don't know what the status, but like 92 or 94% of tech startups, fail within, I think, 2 or 3 years. So yeah, that's definitely a huge lesson is, that is an aspect of market research, right? That's as part of the market research is actually getting in and writing the service, learning who your customer is, learning from those customers, and then slowly, building up a proper tech company.
Yeah. Trial by fire. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So I want to hear about this energy company that you built, Empower. So tell me about that. How did that come about and what was it?
Sure. So this was, so energy is became deregulated in the late 90s. And I was finishing out my master's at NYU, still working with my dad in the real estate and also, doing the laundry rooms. At that point in time, just too many machines were exploding and, I had, too many people taking the bath in machines. So I was looking to like exit the laundry room business. And also exit the property management space as well. Graduated from NYU, also found my wife all at the same time, looking to get into something new. And I just, it kind of fell in my lap. Like I was one of the apartment buildings that I was managing, and I met a gentleman in the lobby, and he was asking me if I wanted to buy energy from him. And I didn't understand what that actually meant. I'm like, I didn't, what do you mean that? How are you going to sell me energy? And then, he explained it a little bit. I'm like, oh, interesting. I thought it was like a very interesting concept just because it's something everybody needs. Everybody needs electricity and, natural gas. And it's also something that's, a residual model. It's kind of like, a SaaS model, right? It's not like just a one-time purchase. And, I got excited about the idea of it. And I started actually, before I jumped in myself, I started working for another company for a few months just to kind of like learn what it is and understand it a little bit better. Then going through that process, I got like even more excited about it. And then interesting stories. So I'm like, okay, like again, I want to do this, right? I want to become an energy company. So I'm sitting actually in Long Island in my brother's house, up on the computer, doing a little bit of research. had his one create an energy supply company. And there's only at that time, there were two lawyers in the entire United States that actually uh, go through the application process that do the paperwork to become an energy supply company. And one of those lawyers was actually had his office one block away from where I was sitting at the time. Uh, I see, he comes up, I call him up. I was like, yeah, I'm in my office, come on by. So I walked over to his office, sat with him, explained to me the process. Uh, it definitely it takes time and, investment and, it doesn't happen overnight, but, went through the process initially. Again, didn't know much about like trading or, EDI side, electronic data interchange. There's lots of, aspects of the business that, I knew nothing about, but I sat with him, explained a little bit, connected me with a couple of consultants, and that was, it was almost 13 years ago now.
So now you have was this a renewable energy company, or you have a
So
climate change mission, right?
yeah, absolutely. So it's a renewable energy company, and we sell it on some renewable energy. And that essentially is the goal is, and we do a great job at it too, because it's one part, the goal is, renewable energy, but your mission is only as good as, the promotion of the mission, right? Like getting that mission out there. So early on, we decided to do all that in house. So now I'm on the trading side in terms of, carrying the racks and renewable energy from solar farms onto wind farms, but also the distribution of it, taking that in house, where we actually, do the furthest thing from what a lot of these like tech companies do from like awareness marketing stuff. So we actually do like door to door sales out in the field, in over 10 states today.
So, what was that the initial idea, or because you had mentioned natural gas? Like, was there some evolution there where you
So
realized renewable energy was the opportunity or the way
yeah,
you wanted
so
to go?
going into it, I like the fundamentals of the business. I thought it was great. And then after a couple years of understanding it better, I just jumped right in. After understanding it a little bit better, I'm like, interesting. So that you could actually source it from renewable sources. You don't have to only get it from, coal or, you can actually get it from wood farms, from hydro, from solar. So, think a lot more about that and doing the research. I'm like, this is fantastic. And then of course, taking the distribution in house where we could actually grow, our renewable efforts, across all the places that we were selling into. And I'm like, this is great. So we just developed it more and more. And that was, it wasn't right from the beginning, but became our mission. And now across board, that's what we do.
Yeah. Oh, that's fantastic. I'm also a, sort of climate change, I don't want to say activist, if you will, but I do a lot of work in the clean tech space. And especially during those times, right? It was kind of an uphill battle. So was there something that, that really drove you? Like, were the economics favorable in that sense, or was this something where you just really felt that passion inside that, this is the way I want to take this company?
So upfront, it was purely like from a business standpoint, economics. It
Hmm.
made a lot of sense.
Good.
And then to take it to the next level, I'm like, it hit me that we could actually run this in a sustainable way. And then that's when we like took it from being a local company to like developing out in 10 states. So, that ultimately what, is our mission, and to grow and, provide sustainable energy at large. And we're doing a phenomenal job at that. We're one of at least in Europe and other states as well, one of the largest, renewable energy companies out there.
Really? So this is an opportunity then for businesses that they can actually choose where they get their energy from, and they can choose Empower and get renewable energy at a favorable price.
So not always is it cheaper. At times, it depends on the utility, it depends on the territory, and also depends on the markets too. But a lot of, especially on the business side, they're looking to go into 2 or 3 or 4 year contracts. And in that case, it could definitely be a lot cheaper, especially in today's, with today's rates are just through the roof with the utilities. Uh, the utility also doesn't offer longer term contracts, so you're always having to pay the spot rate. But in general, renewable energy comes at a premium, and I'm sure everybody, most people understand that. that renewable energy does come at a premium from, non-renewable.
Yeah. No, but so that's fantastic. So you've got this mission, you're building and growing out this company, and this is where you kind of get into the realm of remote work. Now, this was all happening before COVID, right?
Sure.
So
Yeah.
you were maybe one of the pioneers or early stage companies dealing with this shift to remote. So what were kind of some of the big challenges that you've overcome over the years?
Going into, well, way before COVID, building out, the retail side, right? Building out the distribution side. Uh, it was extremely challenging just to put sales together, right? Or the sales motion together. So initially, we started outsourcing. A lot of companies do that when they get into like the retail power and gas side, they start outsourcing to third party companies. There was a tremendous amount of issues around that. It was being like totally disconnected from the customer, not representing the brand in the best light. Also, we had, some fraud on our, for us as well. Like there were certain third party companies that, were actually one story, they were, so there's a DNC list, do not call list. And we have a compliance department that goes through the numbers that a third party call center does, would submit to us. And we go through the DNC list. It was totally, it was kosher. There's no issue there. But, and then, we find out that they were actually scrubbing all the numbers that they were calling out to the DNC list before they provided it to us. And yeah, so once we found that out, thank God we found it out right, like fairly quickly. And then we not only let go of that company, but we decided not to like outsource it to third parties anymore. And that's also part of the reason why we took everything in house. So that way we could fully control, everything from, the message out the door and how we speak to our customers and, ensuring that they understand exactly what renewable energy is and the effects of that and the benefits of that. And then of course, just overall being able to stay, fully compliant and representing the brand in the best possible light. Because, as you know, outsourcing is, that tend to happen if you don't have full control on the sale and what happens at the point of sale. But even myself, I went out to, all over. I went to the Dominican Republic, went out to Mexico, we had a team out in the Philippines, and just going through those experiences, it was an uphill battle, not just from a talent perspective, but from, education, training them in, ensuring that they know exactly what the process is, what the training is, and then of course ensuring that they're producing as well. And we just, there's a lot of trial and error, a lot of issues that came upon, that came about going through that experience. And that was what led me to like thinking this is, at the time we were, this is earlier on, we were like a small business. I'm like, if a small business is looking to put together a sales motion, and develop out a sales team, like fairly difficult. It really is, especially on the SDR side, like, like sales development representatives, BDR side. And then, I'm like, why can't there just be a place where you can get into a portal, write everything's tech, get into a platform, find exactly what is, the types, the characteristics or of the people you look to hire, versus, rate and accent and availability and, the specific industry experiences that they've had and be able to tap into, to this digital platform versus having to, you're left with alternative either outsourcing or going out and finding a team and developing a team yourself physically in some other state or country or hiring in-house, which to me, I don't understand why people hire sales physically in offices anymore. To me, it's not economical. You don't have the reach that you possibly have by going, overseas, and there's lots of other issues that come along with that as well. So, that was about 7.5 years ago. And at that point in time, I'm like, hey, let's do this. Let's build this thing. And that's when we started out, developing out Overpass.
Excellent. Okay, so Overpass is a platform to recruit and hire salespeople around the world.
Correct.
Is that right?
Yeah. So it's to find, interview, hire, and pay salespeople from around the world.
Interesting. And so those people would then be sort of in-house, right? Or,
Yeah,
or
exactly.
working for the company.
They'll be working with a company. They wouldn't be third party. And I think automatically some people out there think to themselves that if I'm hiring, remote, also through a platform that automatically means it's like a third party, and I'm like kind of separated from what happens on the ground, but that's absolutely not the case. Right. And we try to, that's part of the mindset shift that we try to instill in our clients, is that it's so important to train, be involved, and all of that.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. I'm glad to hear that. So another sort of belief or philosophy that I have is you should never outsource contact with the customer. So sales and customer service should be in-house, because not only those are the opportunities for you to really connect with and care for your customers, but that's also where you get the feedback to understand
Exactly.
how your product and service needs to develop. And if you're third party, you're just not going to get that connection and integration
Exactly.
than you would in house. So,
Yeah.
I'm a product guy. I don't know if you know this about me, but I come through a product background, and I'm a human centered design evangelist. I've written a book on it, done a bunch of conference talks, all this kind of stuff around human centered design, but basically bringing your customers into the company, and they play a really essential and vital role in the process of building your products. And so this is where this kind of came from, is one of the biggest challenges that I saw was companies who had outsourced sales or customer service, they just were disconnected from their customers, and they didn't even know how to go talk to them because they didn't have those relationships built. And so bringing those in-house and having those lines of communication with the customer, and even allowing the product team to go and sit in on those sales calls or on those customer service calls.
Yeah.
It just creates such a better feedback loop, for product. So I'm very happy to hear that that's the way the platform works.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And the companies that don't do that ultimately, end up failing, to be honest. Like they think that they could just, farm out sales, or even have like an NFL hire to do sales for them and not get involved at all. And hope for the best, and things generally don't work out that way. You have to be involved. You have to learn from the experiences. You have to optimize the processes. You have to train them. You have to, motivate. And like you said, the feedback loop, you have to learn from not just from a sales perspective, but from overall arching company perspective, and from a product side as well. In terms of like, what are our customers saying? What do they want? What's not working for them? What are the pain points? And then constantly, learn from that and iterate on the product and the process, and marketing and sales as well. Marketing too. I mean, there's and this is a big issue with marketing in general. It's like so many companies kind of just assume, they theorize like what are their customers want to hear. And I say their customers, assuming they even know who their customer is. I think most companies out there, especially early stage, don't even know who their customer is, which I think is actually the number one kind of reason why companies fail. Because they don't know who their customer is. And if you don't know who your customer is, you're not able to target them, but you're also not able to speak to them in a way that actually resonates with them, and you're not able to message them things that they actually care about. But the point is, from off of these sales calls, not just sales calls, but off of like interviews and learning from your customers, again, assuming you know your customers, it changes the entire game. That, to me, I would say, like, the biggest lesson that I've learned throughout this entire experience is number one most important thing is know who your customer is, and develop a community of those customers. They constantly can learn from that. That is the most important thing, because that's going to inform everything else. That's going to inform your content strategy. That's going to inform your messaging. That's going to inform your channel that you're utilizing from a marketing perspective. That's going to inform your sales messaging. And of course, your product, most important. Like, what do you actually build? What value are you providing? How do you know if you're providing value if you don't even know who you're providing value for?
Yep. Yeah. So as a product coach, I'd get brought into these companies, a lot of times big companies with huge, product, a dozen or more product managers and program managers and product owners and all this and that and the other thing. And I would find out, like, they're not talking to their customers on a regular basis, right? And so it's always, there's the first thing, it's like, just go talk to your customers. You talk about the thing that doesn't scale, right? Or doing something that doesn't scale. That's the thing that doesn't scale that you should keep doing at any scale, which is have real personal conversations with your customers, really try to get to know them, try to build relationships, figure out what makes them tick, and then continually validate and iterate, on whatever the solutions are that you're providing. I even have suggested that, CEOs of big companies, right, like billion-dollar companies, should still go and talk to their customers on a regular basis, because otherwise you're just losing touch.
Yeah. I find that it depends how early stage you are, but let's assume you're in the stage before you even have customers. Like, let me ask you that question. Like, what does the company do? They don't have customers yet. You got to do the research.
Yeah.
What is that process, right? To go out
Mhm.
and speak to your customer, not your customers, yeah, but what would potentially be your customer, so that way you can learn and you can actually build the right stuff. I think that's really, really important for people to hear.
Yeah. So no, there's a chapter in my book. I call it Find Your Tribe, right? So the first thing you're doing is actually finding a group of people that you care about, who you want to help. So the idea is you don't have a product, you don't have a solution, you don't even know what problem you're trying to solve. You're just trying to hone in on the people first and foremost. And so you pick a group. It could be property owners, it could be doctors, it could be runners, it could be anything, right? You find out who that group is, you embed yourself with them, and you get to learn who they are, what makes them tick, and what their biggest challenges are. They'll tell you. There is an abundance of problems everywhere you look, right? It's just a matter of finding who those people are and building those relationships. Then there's a process of, okay, how do we actually extract what are their pain points? And there's sort of product discovery, customer interview questions you could ask, and then you try to stack rank them and so on, figure out what are those, those real meaty ones that you can go after. And then you start ideating and iterating on concepts, well, what if this, what if we tried this, what if we did that, would this be a solution, that be a solution? And they'll tell you. And it's when you're in those conversations with their customers, they get excited, right? They love the fact that there's somebody there who actually cares. And when you start without a product, right? If you're not trying to sell them something, you're saying, I'm here for you. I'm here I would love to help you solve this problem. And so when you come at it from that angle, hey, I don't have anything to sell you. I just want to talk to you about your pain points and figure out if there's anything I could go off and build. You just get so much more sort of eager input and feedback, and they'll invite you into their companies. They'll show you everything that's going on that's wrong in whatever it is they're trying to fix. And it's surprisingly easy. That's the thing. It's like, if you just focus on connecting with real people and having real relationships and real conversations about what's really going on in their life. And it's not this transactional, I have a product to sell you kind of relationship. People are incredibly forthcoming. And then those people will become your beta users. They'll become your ambassadors and your evangelists later on down the line, because you've built these solutions sort of bespoke, for them, and they've come along with you for that journey.
So it sounds very simple. So why does so many companies miss that?
Yeah. Because a lot of founders feel like they have all the answers, or they feel like, I'm the innovator, I'm the inventor, I've come up with something that nobody else has thought of. Mm-hmm. So it may be a matter of sort of pride and ego, or in some cases it's naivety. It's that they don't understand the complexities. They see a solution, they say, oh, well, it must be that, and they go off and build it, either before talking to their customers or even just without talking to them entirely. And then we run into this challenge of product market fit. And this is where, this is kind of a buzzword. Like, one of my top SEO terms, or sort of people who find me as they're looking for product market fit. And I immediately say, turn that inside out. Forget about the product you have. Look for the fit first, right? Look for the market fit and then build the product organically in that space, right? Connect with your customers, figure out what their problems are, and then build that solution, along with them, right? Collaborate with them to build that solution. So yeah, I'd say that's it. Is that just a lot of people are so focused on building, they want to just go get to building something. They don't want to do the research, or they really do feel like they have it all figured out. Mm-hmm. And sometimes they get lucky. Sometimes they do, but a lot of times they don't. And either they just fail. And that really is the first kind of major filter, is not finding product market fit in those early days. Or they come find me, You know, they get to that point. They say, my gosh, I don't have all the answers. They get something humbles them, right? Something kind of knocks them down. They say, oh my gosh, I need help figuring this out. And then they start searching product market fit, consultant, coach, whatever. They land on my doorstep, and unfortunately, we have some really tough conversations. Sometimes it's you got to scrap your whole product. Right. We don't start there, but I say the first thing you do is you go embed yourself with your customers, figure out what those pain points are. And there may come a time where you may realize that the product that I built is not addressing their needs. And you have to be willing to scrap it. Maybe you can salvage it for parts. Maybe you can even sort of evolve it. But quite often the realization is, oh, wow, this product is not what our customers are looking for, doesn't fit in their, in their world. And we either have to heavily rebuild it or we have to, to scrap it and rebuild it from scratch. It's painful, but that's the answer in the long run, right? It's not throwing good money and good time and good effort after bad.
Sure. Absolutely.
And, with enough runway, you can do it.
Yeah. I think part of the problem is companies go after in-market leads. So they'll use, search channels because that will allow you to generate leads quickly for your product. And when you're doing that, you're not targeted. It's any profile basically it's in market, searching for keywords that's going to direct them to potentially, convert to your product. Versus doing the other thing, which is, creating their awareness versus capturing, creating the demand versus capturing the demand, which definitely takes more time. It's doing things like we're doing right now. It's developing awareness through podcasts and through lobby banks and community and whatever it may be. But at least doing it that way, you're targeting like who you actually want to target, like who that, like you said, who that tribe is. And I find that a lot of companies fall to that issue as well. So they don't really think of it in that way, where it's like, well, because again, it's an easy thing. I could throw a couple of dollars on search and I can quickly convert some folks that are in market right now. But ultimately, I think that it's a net negative even, because you just bring in customers and the types of customers you don't want to learn from.
Right. Yeah. And it's I think a part of this unicorn culture that we have where founders are from day one trying to build a product for everyone, right? They're saying, well, who's your target customer? Well, it's everyone. Well, maybe it will be in 10 years.
Sure.
But who's your customer right now, today, that you're going to be able to provide a service for, again, at a profit, that you can design and develop a service that fits in their world, that really tightly fits in their, in their, I say in their world, their ecosystem of their environment, of the products that they use, right? That you have to develop something that doesn't stick out, And I think there's just a lot of that. Again, it's bravado, it's ego, or it's even just the pressure from the market that, it's not even worth starting a company if it's not going to be a unicorn, because that's sort of the VC model.
Sure.
It's true, right? But it really does sacrifice all of these opportunities to create really great solutions for niches. I say like the riches are in the niches. All of the best practice and the thought leadership around product development is focus on the niche, capture it, and then expand, right? Yeah. And then find those adjacent opportunities. But with the pace, right? That, you got to be a unicorn in you have to have that hockey stick growth, be a unicorn in the next couple of years. There's no time for it. And so they end up just focusing on, again, creating these super generic, scalable platforms that don't really serve anybody.
Yeah. It's interesting because early on, our direction for Overpass was customer engagement. Even though sales was the pain point that we had with Empower that drove me to develop out Overpass, we're like, well, if we're doing sales, we could do customer engagement, right? Why not have it fit? And I think the why not is what gets people into trouble. And so, we fairly quickly realized, no, that's not good. We don't want to be all things customer engagement. In fact, we don't even want to be all things SaaS. We need to be extremely niche into the SDR, right? The sales development representative. And as you're developing out the product, as you're developing out the profile, as you're, going through the flows from both on the client side and on the SDR side, and even the marketing, like how you think about marketing, what channels you decide that you want to utilize, and figuring out the ICP, right? The ideal customer profiles. Like, well, you have some customers that could, work with not to say we don't work with full sales cycle, account executives, people or clients that, don't hire, AEs off our platform, but that's not at all where we put our focus and our energy and our mindset. It's specifically around the SDR, sales development representative. So, and then you end up solving problems around companies that are having pain points in terms of scaling their SDRs. And it opens your eyes. Even the train, like we're developing out training for our clients, LMS, so they get certified. But the types of things in terms of education that you need is vastly different from an SDR than an AE. Yeah, it's very different types of things that you wanna think through and improve on. So it affects so many aspects, and of course the talent that you bring out to the platform as well. And from beginning to end. So yes, absolutely, you want to be as niche as possible. And that will allow you to also hone in on your ideal customer, and then iterate, learn, and then from there you could grow. Yes, you could grow into, a full sales cycle. You could go into customer service, go into other things. But if you're not like super focused right up front from the beginning, it's just you're gonna go too wide. And I think a lot of companies have the issue of thinking that it's not a large enough TAM, total addressable market. If I'm only focused on this little like sliver, if only niche, and this is the customer that I'm selling to, but I can sell to all these other customers, but that's not the case. In fact, if you're only targeting that specific ideal customer, you could go way past profitability. And that's just a stepping stone. And then move on to the next thing, and then the next thing from there. So
what are some of the growing pains that you're dealing with right now with Overpass?
great question. So a big, kind of alluded to before, a big transition that we're looking to make is move from demand capture to demand creation. That was it was kind of tough because early on, we were very much focused on search, and we were looking to just, generate leads. But ultimately, even though, we bring out business in that way, and but when it comes to, like we said, like learning and growing from the customer base that we have, it really dilutes and clouds the overall picture by bringing on the wrong types of customers. So the challenge that we had was, and you kind of have to do it iteratively, was like kind of like either that we really want to like totally get rid of those types of marketing efforts, and really focus our energies, which we have been doing, but doing more and more around partnership, around podcasts, around, live events, around community, around social. Those are the areas that will allow us to again hone in on specifically our ideal customer, but also make them problem aware. And that's not happening enough in general across all the companies. And we like realize as well internally that we need to be doing that a lot more. So we have been focusing our energies towards that effort. And then of course, like I said, really honing in on being niche in terms of who our ICP is, and just catering to that ICP and learning from them and building out those processes as well. Because that's to say, like, okay, now I have the people who learn from them. I understand that I want to learn from them. But it's a matter of like ensuring that all departments understand the goal and the objectives around that, and they build out their processes to constantly do that on an ongoing basis.
So how do you lead your team, right? How do you drive that alignment, so that your teams are building their own processes in alignment with your values?
Yeah, I think that the number one thing is, the overarching objective and mission, and then how like each department, how that ladders up into it and what their key KPIs are. and it's for them to understand that whatever they do throughout their day and throughout their department should move the needle within the KPIs of their department, which ultimately moves the needle, for the KPIs, and from an objective standpoint, throughout the company. So that's, because otherwise I think things get lost very quickly.
Is there a challenge that you're struggling with, something, a mountain that you're climbing that you're unsure about or really, again, struggling with?
We struggled for a while in a couple different areas. Like I said, one of them is around the right channels and the right type of marketing. Another one was, around learning from our customers and really developing out the right things for them. And right now, I would say, um, alignment is something that we're working towards. It's a goal. It's to get all the teams aligned in terms of like, and we've done like, we're in a much better place today than we were, let's say, a year back. But that's something that's, it's super important to be as focused as possible. I think focus is like just a team across board, right? Not just on the customer, but on the product, but on the marketing. And then, because, you have kind of like, you're exhausted, right? You're like conversation after conversation, Zoom meeting after Zoom meeting. At the end of the day, you're like so tired and like, did you move the needle? Are things moving in the right direction? Like I just had a bunch of meetings, like, and a lot of people seem to be excited, but like, are things actually, is it actually making an impact at the end of the day? And I think that the ways it gets lost, where that doesn't end up happening is when you're too wide and you're not focused enough. Again, not just from marketing, but from across the board. Like the product has to be like super nimble, super focused. The customer has to be super focused. And then the teams have to be super aligned as well. And not to like hire too quickly either, because it's not just a matter of getting another person on the team. That person has to be fully integrated into the culture, into the mission, into their department, and understand and as a manager, you have to be fully aware of like their strengths and weaknesses, and create growth plan for them and develop them. And that all takes time. And when you try to hire like, super fast and just say, oh, we're going to hire 100 people this year. How do I get that number? I don't know. Our VCs told me that that's what we need to do.
Well, I love that you say focus, because that is probably the most essential philosophy in my coaching practice. I have this framework called the goal mastery framework, where it's this really deep top to bottom connecting, every single to-do list and every single daily routine and habit all the way up to your highest level mission and vision and purpose. And there's a lot of work. There's a lot of connective tissue that goes into how do I decide what to do with my time in this moment that aligns me the best with where we're trying to go, over the long period. And it really does come down to focus. So one of my favorite books on this called The One Thing. And it's just this aspect of eliminating all of the distractions or all of the kind of, good but not great opportunities, and just honing in and focusing on that brass ring. And so one thing I do is I have this for all my clients is we have this weekly sort of sprint preparation process. And one of the things to do is to create a to don't list. Right. So one of the first things you have to do in starting out your week are identify your distractions, identify the things that are going to pull you away from focusing on your mission. And you keep that list up. These are the things that I will avoid like the plague. And this comes from, like Ben Franklin and Warren Buffett and there are different variations of this kind of model of clarifying and identifying what are the things that are going to grab my attention and pull me away, both like on an individual kind of day-to-day basis, but from a team and a company perspective as well. Again, a lot of it's insidious because there are good opportunities that can distract you, right? You might be able you might have 3 or 4 different sort of swim lanes or activities or projects that you're working on in parallel. But there's probably only one of them that is really going to take you to that, to that end goal. And so that's really that process of elimination that I work on with my coaching clients, but then also obviously they work on it with their teams, is this again, process of elimination and focus. To me, that is the mechanism of scale. when you reach a scale stage or a late growth stage in your company, the only way to get there is to just laser focus and hone in, get the company on rails so that you can grow up and grow up very efficiently. Because if you've got a bunch of different projects, you're working in a bunch of different areas, they won't mature. You'll have resources being pulled in all different directions, and you'll end up with gridlock.
So,
So I'm very happy to hear that that's sort of a core value of yours as well.
yeah, I mean, I went through a lot of pain to get to that point. But yeah, because like we said, you think you got it, you think you understand, exactly what needs to happen. Then, over time, you kind of open your eyes into realizing that, you spread too thin. You're doing a lot of things that aren't moving the needle. And you need to be super focused. If you want to make an impact, that's just what you have to do.
Yeah. Yeah. And so the last piece of this too is, like I said, kind of in my full stack leadership framework, that coaching being the top layer, how you get alignment. It's not about, you can't tell, right? You can't broadcast. You can tell stories, you can talk, right? But you have to turn it around and understand and listen. So to me, storytelling is the outward conveying of your values and of the mission. And then coaching is turning that around and asking and listening. Do you understand? Did you internalize? Do you believe in this mission? And that's ultimately how you get alignment. You need that acknowledgement that I communicated properly through my storytelling, but that also you understood it and you internalized it and you're aligned with it as well. And then they can turn around and do the same thing in their teams.
Sure.
So what about you? Do you have an experience either working with coaches or as a coach yourself?
I'm not a coach myself. I coach my team. Yeah. I try to do the best.
Well, then you're a coach.
And I do the best I can there. But always open for a great coach, especially that has strong competencies around product. But yeah, I mean, I had a coach for a while, and still work with him once in a blue moon. He's very strong on the marketing side, but just an overall business personal coach. I worked with him for a little while. Yeah, I mean, I feel like it's really tough out there to find a good coach. I feel like majority of the coaches out there, it's either they're not like niche enough and they're too much of a generalist, or that's usually the case, or it's hard to put like, time is valuable, right? You don't have that much time. So even if you want to suss out a coach and sit with them for a few hours, that's a few hours. And then only to realize that, you know what, that's not a great coach for me. But, and I think the best way to find a good coach is through referrals. Somebody that, you respect a lot, that had a great experience with that person. But even with that, they might have a different path, or they probably do have a different path or a different journey that they're on that they really need help with than you do. So it's also could be somewhat concerning.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, obviously as a coach myself, it's kind of like finding a good therapist, right? I mean, everyone, there's lots of good coaches out there, lots of good therapists, but finding that person who's the right match for you in terms of your demeanor, in terms of your skill set, and then the problem domain that you're really trying to work with. I don't have a psychology background, for example, and a lot of coaches do. So there's some people who really have like deep-seated internal struggles, maybe around imposter syndrome or things like that, maybe I'm not the best coach for that, but I have the product and the technology background. So for executives who are looking to build and grow tech companies and that need somebody who actually understands the ins and outs of building tech companies, I'm their guy. But then I may very well refer them to other coaches or even to therapists to help deal with, some of the deeper, personal challenges that, I'm pretty good at them, but there may be a point where I say, you know what, you really need to see a specialist here. And so I think of myself as like the head coach, right? And there may be specialty coaches that I connect people with, but I'm the one that's looking at what is the mission, what are the goals, and let's get you there and then get you the support that you need along the way.
Yeah. So let me ask you this. Obviously, you work for some rather large companies on the product side, and then I guess you went off on your own and now you're running your own company, and primarily that's what you do, right? You coach.
Yeah.
Okay. What was the idea there? Like, why did you decide to do that?
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. Well, so coaching is just it's in my DNA. It's my leadership style. It's what I've always done. But I've been consulting and mentoring and advising tech companies and startups for close to 20 years now. It actually started with kind of the clean tech revolution that happened, over a decade ago. I was working in big tech companies. I had this really strong mission or cause or purpose around climate change. And so I just started engaging in those communities and trying to help the founders that were in that space. And that turned into, again, a consulting business. I have my MBA. And so I would consult around sort of business model and early stage, kind of company formation, that sort of thing. Like I said, founder, inventor has got a really great idea, but really needs a business model. That was kind of my early consulting days. And then the coaching happened mainly because, well, the distinction between consulting and coaching that I found, and it's taken me a long time to realize, is when you're a consultant, people are paying you to come and fix a problem. And it's more focusing on the symptoms rather than the root causes.
Interesting.
And then also they pay you to come and tell them the answers. But that doesn't actually create results in a lot of cases, right?
Sure.
You might tell, there's plenty of information out there. And I can tell that information in a really compelling way, right? I'm a good communicator. But that doesn't create follow through and accountability and actually accomplishment. And so then the coaching piece, I just sort of, I just did automatically say, well, yeah, I can tell you what to do, but first let's focus on the mindset. Right? Let's focus on your whole life and say, do you really even have the time? Like you said, do you have the time to invest in this thing to solve this problem? Are you in the right headspace? Do you have the right, like sleep, diet, and exercise, for example? Like, are you really mentally fit to take on this challenge? Okay, now I can tell you what to do. And then, oh, by the way, I'm also going to hold you accountable and I'm going to track your goals and I'm going to connect you with support and things like that, break down mental barriers, right? And actually achieve the results. And so I'm a kind of a coach-sultant, I guess you could say, but I weave together the aspects of consulting, which is really just my experience in product and tech. So I'm kind of an advisor in that sense, but I try as much as possible to take off that consultant or advisor hat and really focus on, again, sort of mental, physical, emotional fitness, right? Creating the space through the prioritizing and focusing, right? Making room for that investment, having the energy for that investment. Then we can start layering on the tactics, right? And the strategy of what are we actually going to do? And then again, there's that long-term follow through. So another reason why I'm not a typical coach is a lot of coaches have these prescribed programs,
Right.
but for me, I really focus on the relationship.
I'll tell you this, Aaron. It's interesting because if you were, let's say, to like cold email me or LinkedIn email me or whatever it is, and be like, hey, I'm Eric Weiss. I'm a coach and this is my background. I would probably not reply to you.
Yeah,
But going,
most people don't.
but going through
That's
this,
why I don't do cold email.
exactly. But going through this interview, we're doing this for your guests, which is great. Also, we provide some value to them. I would definitely like to take you up on a conversation to maybe further that.
Oh, that's fantastic. I'd love to.
And this is for your guests as well. Like they're thinking about, creating a podcast to bring on, certain guests that potentially be their ICP so they could learn more about your value. That could be extremely, helpful, to them. I think that's a great way to like actually prove out your value, is by, writing a podcast and bring on guests to like, talk them through. So, I've been able to like really see that through this conversation. So I appreciate that.
Oh, wonderful. Oh, that's really great to hear. I mean, that's not, the only reason why I'm doing it, but certainly
Of course,
it's part of it.
It definitely helps, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No. And even again, from the audience perspective, right. I want the people in my audience to just get to know me through the podcast because like you said, right. When you're a stranger, cold emailing, I'm not a marketing guy. I'm not a sales guy. I've never really been able to, in a commercial, convey myself and the value that I bring,
Sure.
and who I am as a person.
Yeah.
And it's just through these conversations,
Yeah.
right? So it's networking, it's referrals, it's conversations like this where people can get to know who I am. And again, if I'm that fit, if I'm the person with the skill set, with the demeanor, with the personality that seems like a good fit, then great, we're off to the races.
Yeah.
You know,
Absolutely.
so yeah,
Okay, perfect.
wonderful. Well, I really do appreciate your time. I know we're a little bit over the hour, so we can go ahead and wrap up here. But before we do, first off, again, I want to thank you so much for coming on the show. But is there anything else that you'd like to share? Any sort of final words or message for the audience?
If you are having pain points around developing out a SDR team or SDR BDR team, definitely check out Overpass, overpass.com. I don't mind promoting Overpass just because I know we provide a lot of value to our core customers. It's not for everybody. Like I said, you want to really focus on our ideal customer profile, which is essentially our, SaaS companies, 1 to 10 million. And we do a great job for them. They're really happy because they're able to, get our sales motion off the ground fairly quickly and in a, much more economical way. So I pride myself on providing that value. If we weren't providing value, I wouldn't be doing this because, I have my day job. This is my day job. Actually, I spend about 90% of my day on Overpass. But, I have my renewable, power gas company and power energy. I would be just doing that all day long. But I really believe in this. I think we're doing something really valuable for our customers. So, if you're looking to, grow your sales team, SDR team, check us out, or you could hit me up on LinkedIn. I'm there as well. And, I hope you all got some value out of this.
Awesome. Yeah, well, we'll definitely share your information in the show notes as well. But no, I personally, definitely appreciate the mission that you're on, the dedication to it, to helping to save our planet.
Awesome.
It's a good mission.
Yep.
So, anyway, thank you so much for your time, and have a wonderful day.
Take care.